Hey guys, this is Mjavedva with another tutorial whether how we can create a timesheet which includes break time and overtime. Well, different companies have different approaches regarding the compensation of their employees' break time and overtime, which they elaborate in their company policies. And when you work as a freelancer, mostly the break times are not paid, and overtime is compensated at the same or regular hours rate. Well, whatever the case may be, an employee should track his or her time to know whether how many hours he/she worked for a particular day and split them to see the regular and overtime hours to know the daily gross earnings. And to know that, I have already formatted a file. This is just a simple formatting, like you just select some range and change its color and nothing else. Well, while creating this time tracker, I took 3 assumptions. The first one is that the standard daily working hours are 8, and the second one is the break times are not paid, and the third one is that the overtime is compensated with a higher than the regular hours rate. Now here's what we will do while creating this time tracker. First, we will calculate the hours worked excluding the break times since they are not paid. Then we will split them to know the regular and overtime hours, and then we will find out the daily gross earnings, and then we will create an invoice and save it as PDF file. So write some date and drag it down to fill some cells. And instead of filling the day-to-day date, I'm selecting the weekdays option in the autofill options, which doesn't include weekend days. And let's suppose it was a morning shift which started from 9 AM and ended at 5 PM, which apparently becomes 8 hours. And since the break time is not paid, we need to find the break time and minus it from the hours worked. And let's suppose we took lunch break from 12:30 to 1 PM during this shift. And remember, you have to add AM or PM if you are using 12-hour clock time instead of military time, which is 24-hour clock time. And to learn more about time formatting, watch my tutorial named MS Excel Calculate Hours Worked in Excel with different time formatting. I will give its link in the description and card element. Anyhow, let's calculate the hours worked, which is end time minus start time. Here it picked the formatting too and gave us the answer in terms of AM or PM, but what we wanted it to be in terms of hours and minutes. So just change its formatting and select this option under custom category and remove the last part. It will calculate the time and give us the answer in form of hours and minutes. And here you can see that we have worked 8 hours during this shift. But since the break time is not paid, we need to find the break time and minus it from the hours worked. So just double click on the cell or press F2 to edit the formula. Now use the parentheses and then find the break time exactly the same way, which is break end time minus break start time. And here you can see that the break time has been deducted from the hours worked, which is 30 minutes. Well, if a company has a standard break time like 45 or 30 minutes, we can use that too into our formula. But using a standard break time arises a problem, which is if an employee comes before ending the standard break time, he/she will not get paid for the time he/she was early. And if an employee comes after ending the standard break time, he/she will get paid for the time he/she was late. So using the start and end break time separately solves this problem. Anyhow, I'm pressing Ctrl+Z to undo that. And let's add another shift which started from 2 PM and ended at 10 PM. And during this shift, the break time was taken from 6:15 to 7 PM, which becomes 45 minutes. Now just drag the formula down to calculate the hours worked. And here you can see that after deducting the break time, we have worked 7 hours and 15 minutes. Now let's add one more, and this time it's a midnight shift which started from 5 PM and ended at 4 AM. And during this shift, the break time was taken from 11 to 11:30 p.m., which becomes 30 minutes. Now, instead of calculating the hours, it has given us an error regarding the calculation of hours worked, which we can solve by using a function named mod, which has two arguments, the number and the divisor. So the number would be the time we have calculated before and the divisor would be 1. Then just close the formula and hit enter. And here you can see that we have worked 10 hours and 30 minutes on this shift even after deducting the break time. Anyhow, if you want to learn why exactly Excel is giving us this problem which we have solved by using the mod function, do watch my tutorial named MS Excel Calculate Hours Worked in Excel with Different Time Formatting. I will give its link in the description. Now let's add one more shift which started from 8 a.m. and ended at 6 p.m. And here you can see it becomes 9 hours and 45 minutes after deducting the break time. Now at this point in time, we have two formulas working in this column. If you want, just drag the mod function to all the cells. And since we have calculated the hours worked, I'm hiding these columns. Now let's split the hours worked into regular and overtime hours. Well, to find the hours worked, we can think of it like this, that if the hours worked are more than the standard daily working hours, which we assumed 8 hours in the beginning, then put the standard daily working hours here, otherwise put the hours worked here. Well, we can hardcode the standard daily working hours by using the time function within our logical test. But to keep things easy, I'm writing the standard daily working hours somewhere on the sheet so that we can understand it and reference it conveniently. And to write hours, we cannot put it in numerical form. We have to use the time function which has 3 arguments. The first one is hours, which is 8. The second one is minutes, which is 0. And the third one is seconds, which is also 0. Here it's formatting in terms of AM or PM, but instead of AM or PM, we need it to be in terms of hours and minutes. So change its formatting and select this option under custom category and remove the last part. Now start your logical test by using if function to find out the regular hours, which means if hours worked are more than the standard daily working hours, then put standard daily working hours here. Otherwise, put the hours worked during that shift. Now it has calculated the regular hours, but gave us the answer in form of general formatting, which we can change by selecting this option under custom category. And here you can see that we have worked 7 hours and 30 minutes, excluding the break time, which is not more than the standard daily working hours. And since we will drag the formula down, we need to lock the cell reference where we have written our standard daily working hours. So just double click on the cell and lock the cell reference by pressing F4 key. Now let's calculate the overtime, which means if hours worked are more than the standard daily working hours, then deduct the regular hours from the hours worked and put the rest here. Otherwise add 0, because if there is no overtime, nothing should be added. Now lock the reference cell and hit enter. It has given us the answer in general formatting again, which we can change by going to the format window. But instead of going there, I'm using the paintbrush feature and applying the same formatting we applied while calculating the regular hours. And here you can see that there is no overtime added here because the hours worked are less than the standard daily working hours, and we assumed that the standard daily working hours are 8. Now drag the formula down and here you can see that on these days we worked more than the standard daily working hours. That's why it added the standard daily working hours here and the remaining under overtime. And on these days we worked less than the standard daily working hours. That's why it added nothing under overtime. Now since we have split the hours worked, we want to know the daily gross earnings, and to know that we need to convert the regular and overtime hours into numerical form. So to convert them, just multiply the hours with 24 and change the formatting to general. Well, why it's been multiplied with 24? Because when we work with hours, it calculates the answer considering the hours in a day. And we know that there are 24 hours in a day. That's why it's been multiplied with 24. Now I'm hiding these columns since we have calculated the hours worked and converted them into numerical form after splitting them into regular and overtime hours. Now it's time to know the daily earnings regarding the regular and overtime hours separately, and let's suppose the regular hours pay rate is 25 and 32 for overtime. Now multiply the respective hours with their respective per hour rates and lock the per hour rate cell by pressing the F4 key because we need to drag the formula down. And here you can see it has calculated the daily earnings regarding the regular and overtime hours, and the days with no overtime have no overtime payments. Now just use the sum function to calculate the daily gross earnings and drag the formula down. Well, here you can write some comments concerning your work, whether it's been all done or something yet to be completed, or anything else you think is important. Now, we definitely want to know the total number of regular and overtime hours to know the total gross earnings so that we can send an accurate invoice to our client. So, to know the total number of hours, we can use some function, and instead of selecting a certain range, I'm going to select the whole column since nothing else will be written in that column. And exactly the same way, calculate the total number of hours of respective columns and change the formatting where you need to. Now let's calculate the total earnings concerning the total regular and overtime hours. Here just multiply the respective hours converted with the respective per hour rate to know the total respective hours earnings. And just sum these amounts by using the sum function here to know the total gross earnings. Now add another shift data to see whether it's working properly or not. And here you can see the 13 hours have been worked on that day, which have been split into regular and overtime hours and then converted to calculate the respective hours and daily gross earnings. and then summed up in the total hours and earnings. Now let's create an invoice, and to save time I have already created one with simple formatting. It doesn't include any typical formatting. Anyhow, here I have mentioned the date, and I took 2 rows for 1 day work because it involves different rates concerning the hours worked, which is regular and overtime hours. And here you can see that under hours column I have just referenced the regular hours cell from the overtime and lunch sheet data. And remember, you need to reference the converted hours, otherwise you need to convert it into your invoice exactly the way we did earlier. And then reference the overtime hours in your invoice. And exactly the same way, reference all your concerned hours in your invoice. Now reference your regular and overtime hours rate in your invoice. And then just simply multiply the rate with the hours under amount column. And instead of using the simple multiplication, I'm using the if error function, just in case if we see some error in the timesheet data. Then drag the formula down to calculate the amount, and then add the amount of performance bonus and advance if there is any. And here is the total invoice amount. Well, we have prepared our invoice and we can save it as PDF file so that we can send it to our client to get paid. Now to save it as PDF file, open your Word document and add this Excel file as an object under Insert tab. And remember, you need to keep the invoice sheet active either by working on it or just double click somewhere on the sheet to make it an active sheet if you have more than 1 sheets in your Excel file. Otherwise, it won't open the invoice sheet in your Word file directly. Now, our invoice has been added to the Word file, and we can adjust it by using the indents if needed. Moreover, if we need to make some changes in the invoice, we can just double click on it, which will open the Excel file within the Word file, and we can make changes according to our need. And then just click somewhere on the Word file to save the changes. And then just press the F12 key on your keyboard and save it as PDF file by selecting the PDF option. And after saving it, it will open the invoice automatically, and this is how your invoice will look like in PDF file. And then you can just email it to your client to get paid. And this is how you can create your time tracker, which includes break times and overtimes, and then create an invoice and send it to your clients after saving it as PDF file. And if you have stayed this far, please consider liking and subscribing, and I hope this will be helpful for someone out there, and thanks for watching.